Listen, the House has done its job.
Members of Mitt Romney's own party are starting to criticize him for being too vague.
I stand by what I said, whatever it was.
When asked if that bothers him, Romney was like, maybe?
The test is not whether you think everything's hunky-dory. The test is whether he's taking us in the right direction, and the answer to that is yes.
Let's get right to our panel now. We're joined by MSNBC political analyst Professor Michael Eric Dyson, Democratic strategist Julian Epstein, and my colleague and MSNBC contributor Joy Reid. Julian, I have to begin with some breaking news. The President has been asked in a special report about Mitt Romney's attacks on him as an apologist today. Take a listen to this, Julian.
There's a broader lesson to be learned here, and Governor Romney seems to have a tendency to shoot first, name later. And as president, one of the things I've learned is you can't do that. It's important for you to make sure that the statements that you make are backed up by the facts and that you've thought through the ramifications before you make them.
Do you think it was irresponsible?
I'll let the American people judge that.
Shoots first, aims later. That's about it, isn't it, Julian?
Well, I think the president, as usual, is being magnanimous. I mean, first of all, I think we should all say that our prayers go out to not just the victims, but all families and people that are serving abroad. Secondly, this is not just a desperation tactic on the part of Romney. This is like a fighter in the middle of a ring who's getting his butt whooped and takes a kind of a flailing swing just before he goes down. Hillary Clinton talked about that 3 a.m. phone call. Well, this was Mitt Romney's 3 a.m. phone call, which he clearly wasn't able to handle. Mitt Romney claims he wants to be the CEO of this country, yet he cannot run a campaign with any degree of confidence. He doesn't have an economic plan, as we've discussed many times. And when it comes to just a very simple thing which he should have done today...
A core issue of judgment. A core issue of judgment.
He and his campaign are just unable to get it right. I've seen a lot of presidential campaigns. This is the most incompetently run presidential campaign, Democratic or Republican, that I've ever seen.
Wow. Joy, we've been hearing experts in foreign affairs like Sarah Palin asking Mitt Romney to be more aggressive and severely personal in Romney's attacks, and he's gone out and done that. How's that working for him?
Yeah, exactly. And what's so sort of sad about it, I think the only correction I make to what Julian said is this isn't a wild swing. This is biting your opponent's ear off in the ring. It is so clumsy and silly, and I think it does speak to this continual need of Mitt Romney to be liked by the most extreme elements of his own party. And so he doesn't even know how to behave as a statesman, as an adult, as a candidate, really as any sort of rational human being.
Are you saying he's almost alienated from himself when he's performing these public?
There's some dissociation happening there mentally. I mean, I think he's doing what he thinks the far right will be pleased with, and it will make him more likable to them. But what he winds up doing is making himself look absolutely unpresidential, and to Julian's point, at the least an incompetent campaigner.
Okay, well, Professor Dyson, we're hearing a slightly different tune now from some Republican talking heads. Here's Reagan's speechwriter, Peggy Noonan. Take a listen, sir.
I don't feel that Mr. Romney has been doing himself any favors, say in the past few hours, perhaps since last night. Sometimes when really bad things happen, when hot things happen, cool words or no words is the way to go.
Now, Professor, I've no wish to defend Mr. Romney's profoundly ill-considered attack last night on the president, but he was only following the advice of Rush Limbaugh and Sarah Palin. Now they're telling him to shut up.
Well, he's got a new method, leading from their behinds. And I think what's interesting here is that, and he's speaking thusly. You mentioned two big brains, you and Joy Reid. On the one hand, you talk about alienated from himself, Marx, or disassociated Freud. Let's throw in Peggy Noonan, of course, with her graceful words. The reality is this. Let's throw in the Bashir brain. And the reality is that this man has no clue as to what foreign policy is about. He doesn't bear the dignity of a statesman. He doesn't have the calculation of a critical thinker. He doesn't bear the political sensibilities of an old wizened soldier like Bill Clinton, and he certainly doesn't have the cool character of a Barack Obama. He is rudderless, he is voiceless, he is visionless, and God knows, I don't want to say he's brainless, but he's being dictated to by people who are in the media, whose job it is to stir up the emotions and to give the rousements, but not to give cool, calculated strategy for American foreign policy. And on 9/11, the very very day we are ostensibly supposed to come together and be unified, he unleashes an attack on President Obama, and then this morning comes back again, getting his facts wrong. He can't even get right about when the anti-American or the anti-Muslim film was made and the apology issued by the embassy in Cairo, which was right, and they stand by that, because they were trying to stop the fomenting of the violence, not after the fact. This is a man who has proved that he is not presidential material, and the more he speaks, the more we're convinced of that.
Julian, to Professor Dyson's point, we can't forget the fact that 4 Americans were killed. And yet here's Mitt Romney issuing a statement hours before the next of kin were even informed. I mean, the indignity, the discourtesy, the lack of judgment of this man is, well, it's embarrassing.
It's also very unpresidential, and you would wonder why the campaign would let Mitt Romney make such an unbelievable mistake. Again, as you pointed out, even Republicans are pointing out that this was distasteful and unpresidential. And I think the reason for that, Martin, is this. Every presidential election has an inflection or a tipping point, and generally it's about the 3rd week in October where you really sense one campaign is running, one team is running away with the election. I think the difference in this election is that inflection point happened in August, after there was no bounce from the Ryan pick, after they had such a bad convention, the Democrats had such a good convention, and we see such a huge bounce in the polls now. I think the Republicans, and particularly the Romney campaign, feel like this campaign is slipping away from them, and they had to do this kind of silly, tasteless Hail Mary pass that ended up backfiring. And again, this just shows if a guy runs a campaign so badly, how can we trust him to try to run the country? And I think this is really a teachable moment for the country about what kind of guy this is, a guy that will exploit a moment like this in a way that is very harmful to the country and harmful to our national interest to score a cheap political point, and then it ends up hurting him.
Yeah, Joy, a final comment from you. Doesn't this also today severely contrast the dignity of the President and the Secretary of State, who didn't even mention Romney or his comments in the way they spoke, compared to Romney's press conference earlier today?
Yeah, and I think had the President not been asked specifically about it, he probably would have not commented at all, because there is a time for politics, and then there is a time for the simple dignity. I think you did use the right word. For the simple dignity of an American statesman to state the country's grief collectively. That is really the ceremonial role of President. And if you can't feel that when you're running, it's hard to believe you could do it when you're President. And one other quick thing, we have to also remember where Romney is coming from politically. He's surrounded by people from the Bush administration, from that neocon sort of thinking that all you need is bluster. All you need is to puff up our chests and sort of go after other people and put down others and just sort of reassert what everyone commonly believes. Yes, it's a great country, but this idea that bluster alone is foreign policy, and it really isn't.
It isn't. Joy Reid, Professor Michael Eric Dyson, and Julian Epstein, I wish we had more time, but thank you all. And coming up